Alright, so we're on Tuesday. It is the last Friday was the 13th, Friday the 13th. So Tuesday is therefore 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. And today a report came out about the HMRC's contractor Concentrix. Now Concentrix went wrong, and what I'm going to do here is read the press release, first of all, that the National Audit Office, NAO for short, National Audit Office. I think it's overseen by, or it used to be called the Audit Commission. And I'm going to read out the press report that they've given, which is like their short version. There's the main body of the report, which you can download a PDF, and in an EPUB version. There's then the summary of the main body, the main report. And then there's other bits. So what I'm going to read, first of all, is what the Huffington Post said. And Frank Field MP, Member for Parliament, has been in opposition for some time, and he's been talking about this. So I'm going to read his little piece in the Huffington Post first, or rather the Huffington Post, which refers to him. If I can find it on the iPad. So, Huffington Post, in HuffPost Politics, it says, low-income families left stranded as Concentrix failed to answer 62,000 calls in 1 month, damning report finds. Families faced months of desperation. Now, it's not that I haven't done my own work on this, and I've got an actual recording, so I've got some real on-the-ground stuff on this that I've done elsewhere. If you want to find it, you can look for sleekitwan, HMRC, or sleekitwan, Concentrix. But I'm going to read out this because it's good a way as any, and I'm giving credit here where it's due, Huffington Post. So this is the Huffington Post piece on it. Now, for those that don't know, tax credits is something that's meant to help people who aren't right at the bottom end in terms of difficulties. You know, they don't have no income or anything, but they're the jams, as people have begun to call them, just about managing. So it can be sort of leaving benefits right into not too badly off, right into nearly self-sufficient. And it unlike other benefits, it doesn't depend on you having no savings or hardly any savings and stuff like that. And so the idea was to get people moved into work gradually instead of there being a cliff edge of benefits. This doesn't work for some reasons that are complicated, but to do with the fact that every year they retrospectively reanalyse what you've done. They've been shown to not have a lot of integrity about this, the HMRC and Concentrix. And I think HMRC, unless I'm much mistaken, will have picked up some bad habits from Concentrix, because Concentrix have now set the bar very low. So the HMRC, in effect, having taken on about half the staff of Concentrix, under a TUPE arrangement, TUPE, transfer of undertakings, because Concentrix contract has now been kicked to touch after 3 years. It's not quite gone yet technically, but they are finished. Concentrix are down in Brighton, by the way, on the south coast of England. Nice offices and lovely place, but terrible company, American company. That's just where they have to come from. Right. So, low-income families left stranded. Low-earning families were left stranded as a firm employed by the government to help cut tax credit fraud left 62,000 calls unanswered in 1 month. National Audit Office report found the US firm Concentrix missed over half its performance targets, and during 1 month left 2/3 of its post unopened. Now, they might get tens of thousands of letters, and what this means is that, you know, the top third or the bottom third just weren't looked at. When you say performance targets not met, you think, what the heck does that mean? That means things like, did you manage to open all your posts? Okay, so I'm just going to show you the graph now of the performance targets not met in all sorts of areas. This here, the red bits are all the bits they failed to meet. So those yellow bars would go right to the top if they met these indicators, and out of the 24 or whatever indicators they have, they failed to meet quite a lot of them. In a blog for the Huffington Post, MP Frank Field condemned the company's game of Russian roulette with hungry families and called on the government to refund those who faced months of desperation under Concentrix's reign for the hardship they endured. Now, you actually are allowed, I'm filling in the background here, custom and practice has it, and they used to have a policy that they published about this, HMRC. You can be compensated financially for anxiety and hardship and distress caused by HMRC or their contractor, Concentrix really. These range from £25 to £500. They've cut this wording now out of the latest policy documents, the HMRC, so it's a little bit naughty of them, just as more people learn about it and might want to complain. So you've got to complain under this kind of system and say that you'd like some compensation for financial hardship and so on and so forth. How much money you'll get, I don't know, but you can do it. I've never done it, so I don't know. Concentrix made just 20% of the savings it was hired to achieve, and around a third of the firm's decisions to stop tax credit awards were later overturned, the report also revealed. Now, this doesn't tell the whole story, this is my aside. The rider to that is that there are a whole lot more things that get appealed and that people win an appeal on. 2/3 of appeals are upheld in tax credits. That's right up there with the other one is the DWP with the disability something or other. There's quite a lot of those upheld. PIP, that's the one I'm talking about. It's the new one, not the old one. It's PIP, Personal Independence Payment. So that's something that is also have a very bad track record on appeals. So a lot of the government departments say that people can't have something, they're not entitled to it in some way, shape or form. Like with tax credits, you're not doing the hours you say you're doing. We don't believe you, blah blah blah. And then an awful lot of them, it finally turns out, under scrutiny of a lawyer, are in fact perfectly within their rights to claim and are correct to claim and should get the claim. So that's what that says. They're rather prone to telling you shouldn't have it when a lot of the time people should. In 2014, Concentrix was awarded a £75 million contract by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC, to help cut tax credit fraud. Tax credits are government payments to households on low incomes, I explained that. They axed the firm's contract in November after Concentrix was accused of incorrectly withdrawing tax credits from hundreds of claimants. It emerged that untrained staff in the company had received suicide calls from people who had their benefits cut. I can assure you that if you are somebody who's in touch with tax credits a lot, you will get to the point where you are pretty depressed, desperate, in despair. Suicidal would be the extreme, obviously, but some people are they just don't have any recourse. They don't have a mum who's going to help them out. They don't have friends who have got some money that they can just give over. Or maybe those friends have given over enough money and are concerned that they're going to go down with the ship. So I'm afraid suicidal calls, I totally believe it. An NAO report, National Audit Office, on Tuesday revealed that in August 2016 Concentrix answered just 139,000 out of 201,000 calls. It met half of its performance targets between November 2014 and September 2015, and in June 2016 opened just a third of its post within the firm's 15-day target. Most people wouldn't leave the post for 15 days, that's a long time. The report also revealed Concentrix had saved the taxpayer $193 million, but they were expected to save $1 billion, which is why they got the contract. You can bet your bottom dollar Concentrix said, and in their sales pitch told HMRC, oh, we can knock that by, who knows how much. But of course, the HMRC thinks it's owed $25 billion in tax, and yet, despite being able to estimate how much it's owed in tax, unpaid tax, never seems to be able to collect it. Big non-payers are people like Amazon and so on, and they now pay a little bit, but boy, they've held HMRC at bay for 10 years or more. It met half of its performance targets. Yeah. Frank Field said the review made for grim reading. My constituents who are wrongly denied cash to feed their children will totally relate to the catalogue of problems identified by the National Audit Office. It's important, of course, for HMRC to learn the right lessons from these problems. What Frank Field means is HMRC might say, right, we need to be harder, we need to kick people harder. Obviously, Concentrix weren't tough enough with people. Yeah, that's the lessons they could decide to take. Equally important in short term, though, is to reimburse my constituents and many other families on low incomes across the country who went without food and got themselves into huge amounts of debts while Concentrix wrongly withheld the tax credits. And this is absolutely true. I mean, I've had a situation once at the bank where... You have to excuse my telephone. Okay, daughter's laptop got repaired, that's what the telephone calls were about, and those are some texts to do with that. Right, so we were at the HMRC and the NAO. So Frank Field says it's pretty grim, which he's been warning people for a while, though I have too, to be fair, and quite a few people have been online saying how awful the HMRC have been dealing with this. And a lot of it is, you know, staffing, and they've been shredded, the HMRC. I mean, in effect, they've had to take on staff, in effect. This is a kind of underhand way of the HMRC admitting that they lost too many people. But good luck getting them to actually admit that they made a mistake there, because that's on a minister's desk, and that would be, you know, loss of face, and of course none of them like to do that. They'd rather make the country exit Europe than have a loss of face or loss of power for themselves. HMRC is absolutely committed to paying tax, says an HMRC spokesperson, paying tax credit claimants all the money to which they're entitled, efficiently and on time. HMRC terminated the contract with Concentrix when it became clear that it was not delivering the quality of service we expect for our customers. Oh God. They got rid of Concentrix when the public clamour was so great that bosses at HMRC couldn't avoid taking responsibility and falling on their own swords. Public embarrassment and humiliation makes it difficult for them to get another job or to keep the job they're in. So this business about the quality of service, the QoS for the customers, bollocks. It is important to make checks on tax credit payments to ensure the right people are receiving them under the law. This is them now hitting the hammer on the thing of we're making sure the taxpayers get value for money. And under the guise of that, they let 25 billion of tax be unpaid, but screw people for the last couple of thousand of tax credits, last couple of £1,000, and a lot of times, as I say, 2/3 of the times the appeals go against them. So, wow, they're really on side. This work will now be done by the HMRC. I mean, novel, let the tax people sort the tax out. We will not be entering into external contracts for this in future. We apologise to all those who did not receive the standard of service that they should have, and who felt suicidal. The vast majority of people who are asked to have Concentrix decision reviewed have now had their payments reinstated where that decision was wrong. Well, that's a big maybe. You can only decide that a year later because they review things at the end of the year. And if there's a mandatory reconsideration process, that's their review process, and if there's then an appeal, that might not happen till 6 months after the tax year ends. So they can't even actually make that statement. Anyway, Concentrix has been contacted for comment, and quite a lot of people have tried to contact Concentrix for comment, and BBC tried. Nobody can get them yet. I'm not sure anybody's going to comment from Concentrix. Will it help them get the contract back? Probably not. So that was the Huffington Post thing. Now the other thing I intended doing was just reading out the National Audit Office summary. So this is a summary from them, which if I pull it up. So it's dated today, January 17th, 2017. Investigation into HMRC's contract with Concentrix, it's called. And that's the name of the full report. So the National Audit Office has today published its finding. This is the actual summary of their report. Okay, so I'm just going to go through it without any asides. Okay. So these are the words of the National Audit Office. The National Audit Office has today published its findings from its investigation into HM Revenue and Customs contract with Concentrix. The 3-year contract, signed in May 2014, was to provide additional capacity and analysis to review and correct personal tax credit payments. The contract did not work as HMRC intended, and in November 2016, HMRC and Concentrix agreed to terminate it, and a number of Concentrix staff transferred over to HMRC. The investigation looks at the aims and management of the contract, the decision to terminate it, and the impact of contract termination. The key findings of this investigation are as follows. HMRC expected its contract with Concentrix to provide good customer service standards for claimants. This is point 1. It required Concentrix to follow the same procedures as HMRC when investigating tax credit claims after training provided by HMRC. Concentrix collected and assessed evidence on claimants' circumstances and determined whether the award was accurate, and made amendments or stopped awards altogether where it believed the award to be incorrect. It then made amendments to those claimants' tax credits or stopped them altogether. HMRC continued to manage awards, recover any overpayments, and deal with claimants' appeals. Second point. HMRC estimated in November 2013 that its contract with Concentrix would save £1 billion over the life of the contract. That's about $1.25 billion at today's values. HMRC estimated that Concentrix would provide additional capacity to investigate up to a further 1.5 million awards per year. Savings would come from stopping incorrect claims, reducing overpayments, and the recovery of money already paid out. HMRC expected to pay Concentrix between £55 million and £75 million over the 3-year life of the contract. In March 2016, HMRC had reduced its forecast of expected savings to £405 million. HMRC analysis identified 2 main factors that led to the reduction. A 2-month delay to the contract start date because of delays in developing the IT infrastructure to transmit and manage cases, and Concentrix working fewer cases than HMRC originally expected. Concentrix, however, believes the reduced level of savings was as a result of less fraud and error in the system and changes in the mix of cases it was given to work. Just an aside there, they are suggesting, Concentrix, that they were given a smaller amount of actual mix of fraudulent cases in with the batch of cases that they got to work on. The contract included incentives for Concentrix to meet customer service and quality targets. This is the next point. HMRC's business case recognised the risk of the supplier increasing profits at the expense of customer service. No kidding. To mitigate this risk, HMRC reviewed a sample of cases each month to measure the quality of compliance decisions by Concentrix, and also required them to meet key performance indicators for customer service, which Concentrix reported its performance against on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. Next point. Between November 2014 and September 2015, Concentrix consistently failed to achieve over half of its performance targets. It met only 104 of a total 240 applicable monthly performance indicators. Its performance was worse during the peak renewals period in mid-2015, when in July it answered an average of 4.8% of calls within 5 minutes, and the target is 90%. Just as an aside, 5 minutes is forever on the telephone. Next point. HMRC reduced Concentrix's commission payments by a total of £3.5 million over the life of the contract, after it missed quality and customer service targets. HMRC paid Concentrix only for the percentage of cases meeting quality standards, and in October 2015 introduced a further penalty that reduced the commission paid to Concentrix when it failed to meet customer service targets for handling calls and post. So this bit, an aside, this is about penalising the company, and they're introducing further penalties to penalise them further. So I would say in October 2015, HMRC knew it was pretty well going down the toilet. In October 2015, HMRC and Concentrix agreed to vary the contract. This is an aside here from me. If you're going to vary the contract, you're desperate. Concentrix must have realised it was really going bad. Agreed to vary the contract, introducing a revision to the performance management arrangements and an increase in the level of commission payments. Concentrix's level of commission increased to 11% compared to 3.9%, with a possibility to earn 6.9% if savings reached particular thresholds in the initial contract. This is my aside on that. They've just been given a load of penalties, but then they've just had their money upped in order that they can afford to pay the penalties without taking an overall hit. My view on that is, are they taking the piss? How can it be a penalty if you compensate them by higher commission to overcome the penalty? Oh, please. After some improvement, the performance of Concentrix fell again during the 2016 renewals process. Concentrix's failure to process compliance cases in accordance with its plan meant resourcing in call centres was not sufficient to meet the resulting increase in customer calls. Higher than expected terminations where claimants failed to renew the tax credit awards and IT issues in August further increased call volumes and delayed processing. Here's an aside here. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, people were very prone to saying it's the computer. They blamed stuff on the computer at the drop of a hat. In the 1980s, it turned into the system won't let me do it. The 1990s, the system won't let me do it, turned into not mentioning it. In other words, about the time that everyone became reliant on computer systems to do a job and didn't have either the means of a paper alternative or the knowledge or experience or brains to make up a paper alternative ad hoc when something went wrong. At that point, when people were so reliant on systems, IT systems, they stopped criticising them. Because to criticise the IT system becomes criticising your company. And so here's an admission here that IT systems failures have been part of it. Part of the big problems that HMRC and Concentrix have had. Concentrix admit that HMRC had some systems problems. HMRC vaguely alluded to that, but never actually said what those problems were. I can tell you from the inside, having done IT support work, the company would have to be falling apart at the seams for them to admit that there was any fault whatsoever. After some improvement, the performance of Concentrix fell again, and IT issues in August further increased call volumes yet. By 20th September, when high-risk renewals process was scheduled to complete, there was a backlog of 181,000 open cases. Although Concentrix opened 324,000 compliance investigations on high-risk renewal cases, as was planned, it did not conclude its inquiries and close the cases as expected. The backlog of cases contributed to higher than expected call volumes and award terminations when claimants failed to renew. What this shows is that some people just gave up. Some claimants just gave up, and they were expected to carry on, but they just gave up claiming. Pardon me. Concentrix was unable to cope with the volume of calls from claimants during August 2016, which were significantly above forecast. It had estimated weekly call volumes at around 8,000 during August 2016, but the volumes reached 6 times this level. Just an aside, they expected 8,000 calls during August 2016. They got 48,000 calls. Well, no company's going to cope with that difference between what they work for and expect and what they actually get. For example, in the week commencing 15th August, Concentrix received a peak of 48,000 calls, of which, this is in 1 week, of which 19,000 were unanswered. Concentrix redeployed staff to call centres, but it was insufficient to cope with the volume of calls and meet service standards, and it was below the resourcing set out in its plan. This meant that some claimants were unable to contact Concentrix to discuss their award. As an aside, they're saying they get 5 times as many calls in 1 week, excuse my text. That's absolutely astonishing. Redeploying staff, you got to remember it's August. This is literally the middle of August. They may redeploy staff, but the country's empty of people because everyone's off to Mallorca. More awards were terminated as a result of renewals process than were expected, increasing demand on the call centre. HMRC stops making provisional awards to tax credits claimants when they fail to renew their claim by 31st July. In 2016, the number of provisional awards terminated as part of the high-risk renewals process conducted by Concentrix was significantly higher than expected at 45,000 against the 21,800 anticipated in its plan. These higher than expected terminations would have been lower if Concentrix had processed more cases prior to 31st July. To unpack that, they're so late with cases from June, July time, they've morphed into all the stuff that comes at the end of July, which is the renewals. They've got stuff prior to that they haven't done yet and closed. So they've got all that old backlog stuff, they've got all the renewal stuff to deal with. It just killed them, the backlog on top. Concentrix's performance, in other words, they failed to clear the decks before the big busy time came at July 31st and onward. Concentrix's performance in August 2016 was also affected by IT failures. A routine technical update to Concentrix's systems aside, routine update, I've seen those. Concentrix's systems on 11th August 2016 prevented its staff from accessing or updating claimant details for a total period of 26 hours. This lack of access led to higher call volumes from 12th August onwards. Aside, these are panic calls. This is evidence that some claimants had to call multiple times to get in contact with Concentrix. Concentrix cites two further IT failures in its and HMRC's systems as contributing factors. Next, HMRC took steps to mitigate the impact on customers after the problems were escalated to its senior management on 5th September 2016. HMRC reallocated a weekly average of 670 full-time equivalent staff between 12 September and mid-November 2016 to work on clearing 181,000 cases returned from Concentrix and to answer calls. This is my aside. They've had 181,000 cases kicked back, the HMRC, from Concentrix, rejected from Concentrix, saying, either we can't deal with them or there's decisions to be made in these that we can't do. And Concentrix, being in trouble themselves all the way through August and into September, have gone home. They've kicked them all back. And then, of course, HMRC's drowning. Next point. In total, Concentrix stopped or amended tax credit awards in around 12% of cases investigated, of which 32% of these decisions were overturned following a mandatory reconsideration. Aside, a third of those, so that's 4%. So in the end, only 8% of the 181,000 cases were actually turned around. Not turned around, but were actually a problem in the end. Those other people were all claiming properly, but those 92% of people of that 181,000 who were claiming properly had everything interrupted and damaged because they were considered to be some kind of special case that had to have the money stopped. Okay? Concentrix has stated that the average length of time for which claimants had the tax credit stopped and then subsequently reinstated was between 6 and 8 weeks. Between November 2014 and mid-December 2016, HMRC had paid a total of £86,815 in compensation. This isn't money people are owed tax credits. This is compensation between £20 and £500 for anxiety, distress and so on. Okay? So put your claim in. A total of £86,815 in compensation for complaints relating to cases handled by Concentrix. The contract with Concentrix delivered estimated savings of £193 million against a payment of £32.5 million. Estimated savings, just on the side, the contract cost HMRC £32.5 million, but the savings they delivered were £193 million. HMRC will trumpet this as a success in outsourcing. Estimated savings are assessed as £223 million net of opportunity costs of £30 million relating to the diversion of HMRC staff to complete Concentrix cases. The payments to Concentrix included £23.1 million in commission and £6.9 million related to mandatory reconsiderations where decisions were overturned, and HMRC agreed as part of termination not to adjust payments to Concentrix, along with amounts for partly work cases and subcontractor costs following termination, and additional IT-related costs. HMRC did not meet any severance costs for staff leaving Concentrix following their agreement to terminate the contract. Concentrix told us that it made a loss of £20.5 million on the contract. HMRC will not replace Concentrix with another third-party provider and has transferred 243 staff from Concentrix under TUPE regulations, transfer of undertaking, to work on tax credit error and fraudulent interventions. HMRC concluded the risks of a third-party arrangement to customer service outweighed the benefits, notwithstanding the net positive savings against cost-set reports. As I say, the last word there is it's trumpeting its benefits of outsourcing work. There's notes for editors after that, and it explains what mandatory reconsiderations are and stuff like that. In the end, they've been quite nice, and 2/3 of the payments that Concentrix got from HMRC were commissions payments, which, remember, they upped partway through the contract by agreeing to vary the details of the contract. So they've allowed Concentrix to live. They haven't stiffed them completely, and they've taken a 20 million hit at the taxpayer's expense for things that they say Concentrix was meant to deal with but didn't deal with. So they're doing that on the basis that overall the process saved them 200 million or something, 193 million pounds. You can read into that whatever the hell you want. What I read into it is they're saving Concentrix from complete disaster, because one day they might want the people from Concentrix to run something else. And that's the National Audit Office. I just more or less read out with a couple of asides explaining what the National Audit Office final report dated today, January 17th, 2017, comes out with regarding the disaster that was Concentrix. A reign of terror, as Frankfield MP called it, trying to run HMRC's business for it. Thanks for watching and listening.